Hi everyone, in Algebra 3 today we're going to be going over your questions on lesson 77, starting on number 16. So it says the scores on a test are normally distributed with a mean of 75 and a standard deviation of 5. What is the percentage of scores that are greater than 82? So for number 16, I'm going to draw you a diagram so you can kind of understand what we're doing. So the mean is in the center, which is 75, and we are trying to find the percent that is greater than 82. So I would say that's about here. We're trying to find this percent right here. So we're going to calculate something called the z-score, and that's going to be x minus the mean divided by the standard deviation. The x is going to be the 82, the score you're focusing on, minus the mean, which is 75, divided by the standard deviation, which is 5. And you can use your calculator to do this. So 82 minus 75 divided by 5 gives us 1.4, positive 1.4. That's how many standard deviations away from the mean this value is. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go to your chart here, the back of your answer key, looking for positive 1.4. So you want to go down to positive 1 over to 0.4, and that percentage is going to be 91.92%. Now that percent again actually is just telling us the percent that falls below this value. So that would be here, would be 91.92%. That falls below, but I want to find the percentage that's greater than that. So all I need to do is subtract that from 100. So I'm going to do 100 minus 91.92, and that's going to give me 8.08%. And that would be number 16. Now moving on to number 17, we just need to evaluate and solve for S. So what I'm going to do is to solve for a matrix, you start in the top left and multiply by bottom right. So I'm going to be multiplying 1 plus S times 2S minus 1 minus top right, which is negative 2, times bottom right, which is S. Now I'm going to distribute this. So I have 2S minus 1. S times 2S would be 2S squared. S times negative 1 would be negative S. Two negatives make a positive, so that would be plus 2S is equal to 0. So now I just need to simplify this. I have 2S squared, and then 2S minus S plus 2S would be 3S. And then minus 1 equals 0. And we're going to solve this by using quadratic formula. So S is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root. 3 squared minus 4 times 2 times negative 1 all over 2 times 2. So that would be negative 3 over 4 plus or minus, and that turns into 9 plus 8, which would be the square root of 17 over 4. And this is for lesson 77, number 17, and that is your answer. Now moving on to number 18, this is one of our parabola problems. So a parabola has its vertex at 4, 3 and its focus at 4, 0. Write the equation of its parabola and the directrix and the axis of symmetry and graph the parabola. So I'm going to start with graphing. I'm going to graph this. Oops. So I kind of messed up a little bit. So over 4 up 3 is going to be our vertex. over 4, 0 is going to be my focus. So I know that my parabola is actually going to open up down. Now I can plug in my axis of symmetry. It's where these 2 points line up on the x-axis. So the axis of symmetry is going to be x is equal to 4. Now I need to plug in my directrix. So I count how many spaces I go between the vertex and the focus, which would be 1, 2, 3. And I go that many spaces in the opposite direction. So 1, 2, 3. And that would be here on the y-axis. And that's the equation of a line. So it would be y is equal to 6, positive 6, because that's what's crossing the y-axis. Now I need to plug in my equation. So that's going to be y is equal to 1 over 4p x minus h squared plus k. Now the p is just the distance between the vertex and the focus. And since this is going to be down, it's going to be negative. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. That's 3 spaces. That's going to be our p. So it's y equals 1 over 4 times negative 3. And then h and k is the coordinate of the vertex, which they give us. So it would be x minus 4 plus 3. And my answer is going to be y is equal to negative 1/12 x minus 4 squared plus 3. That's my equation of the parabola. My diagram is here. My axis of symmetry and directrix is here. And that concludes number 18. Now for number 19, we have to write the equation of the sinusoid as a cosine function. And I'm going to write this as a positive cosine function. This is number 19. I need to solve for A, the midpoint, then B, then C, and then I'll fill in D as well. So now we're going to look at that diagram. It looks like this. So for A, it's the midpoint between 12 and 10, the top and the bottom. So you're going to do 12 plus 10 divided by 2. Then I need to know the amplitude, so the distance between the top and whatever I got for B. So it's going to be 12 minus whatever I get for A. And then for C, it's 2 pi divided by the length of the period, which in this case is going to be calculated from peak to peak. So I'm going to start here and end here. So that's pi over 3 to 7 pi over 3. We always use the absolute value of this. So now we can go back to what we have. So I said the length of the period is going to be pi over 3 plus 7 pi over 3. Now here I have 22 divided by 2 is 11. 12 minus 11 is 1. That's my midline, or my where it's crossing the y-axis. This is going to be where the amplitude. Now I have 2 pi over 8 pi over 3. So I'm going to multiply this by 3 over 8 pi. So that cancels. So now I have 2 goes into 8 4 times. I have 3 over 4 because the pi's will cancel, is my C. So now so far I have y is equal to A, which is 11, plus B, which is 1. We're writing this as a cosine function. Cosine C, which is 3/4. And that's going to be x minus the phase shift, which in this case, if I look here, it's currently peaking at negative pi over 3. It's peaking at negative pi over 3. So that's going to be my phase angle, is negative pi over 3. So it's going to be x minus negative pi over 3. My result rewritten will be y is equal to 11 plus 1 cosine 3 over 4 x plus pi over 3. And that concludes number 19. Now number 20 is kind of similar to that, to number 19, but it gives you all the information without you having to look at a diagram. So for number 20, it says write the equation of the sinusoid whose graph is a sine function with an amplitude of 7, so that's b is the amplitude. The period is 540, a center line of -3, and a phase angle of 60. So that means A is equal to -3, that's our center line. B is the amplitude, which is 7. C is going to be 360 divided by the length of the period, which they give us is 540. And then D is the phase angle. So 360 divided by 540, written as a fraction, is 2/3. So I'm going to write this out as y equals A, -3, plus B, 7, sine C, 2/3, and then it's x minus your phase angle, which is 60. And that concludes number 20. Now looking at number 21, I am going to start by multiplying the outsides and then adding the degrees. So for number 21, I have 8 CIS, and that's going to be -300. I need to expand this, so it's going to be 8 times cosine of -300 plus I sine of -300. Now -300 would be in quadrant 1 with a 60-degree angle, meaning my adjacent would be 1, my opposite would be √3, and my hypotenuse would be 2. So for the cosine, it will be adjacent over hypotenuse. So 1/2. For sine, it's going to be opposite over hypotenuse, so √3/2, I. And then I'm just going to distribute my 8. So I have 4 plus 4 square root 3i. And that would conclude my answer for number 21. Now for number 22, we have to solve this, and it's going to be between 0 and 360, which makes our lives a little bit easier because we don't have to do more work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by moving the 1 to the other side. So cotangent squared x equals 1, 3. And then I have to divide by 3. Then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I have cotangent x is equal to plus or minus 1 over the square root of 3. So that's going to split into two equations. Cotangent x is equal to positive 1 over √3. And then cotangent x is equal to negative 1 over the square root of 3. Now, I'm first going to solve for where tangent is positive. So all students take calculus. Because it's cotangent, it's the inverse of tangent, so it follows the same places where tangent is positive. So everything's positive in quadrant 1, and tangent is positive in quadrant 3. This is going to be adjacent over opposite, so 1 over √3, then negative 1 over negative √3, meaning the hypotenuse is 2. I know what angle that's going to be because it's between 1 and 2 on the reference triangle, which means that my first answer is going to be 60 degrees. My second answer is going to be 60 plus 180, so that would be 240 degrees. Now for the second one, I'm going to do the same thing, but instead of finding where it's positive, I'm looking for where it's negative. It's positive in 1 and 3, which means it's going to be negative in 2 and 4. And this is going to be adjacent over opposite. This is 1, negative √3, negative 1, √3, Same angle, it's still going to be a 60-degree angle, but in quadrant 2, I'm going to subtract it from 180, giving me 120. And in quadrant 4, I'm going to subtract it from 360, giving me 300. So make sure you end up with 4 answers altogether on that problem. Now on number 23, similar problem. I'm going to start by moving the 1 to the other side, then dividing by root 3. So 23, I have tangent of 4 theta equals 1 over root 3. So just like in the last problem, I'm trying to solve where tangent is positive, which would be quadrant 1 and quadrant 3. And this is opposite over adjacent, so this would be 1 over root 3, then negative 1 over negative root 3. This angle is now going to be a 30-degree angle. So my first answer is going to be 4 theta equals 30 degrees. Second answer is 4 theta equals 210 degrees, because in quadrant 3 I would add it to 180. Now I have to do 30 divided by 4 equals, my first answer is going to be 7.5. Second answer, 210 divided by 4 is 52.5. Now remember, I should end up with 4 answers for each quadrant. So you're going to divide 360 by 4, which gives us 90. And that's what you're going to continuously add until you end up with 4 answers. So 90 plus 7.5 is going to be 97.5. Then plus 90, 187.5. Plus 90 is going to be 277.5. And those are your 4 answers for quadrant 1. Now on to the third quadrant, we do 52.5 plus 90, which is 142.5. Then add 90 again would be 232.5. Add 90 again would give us 322.5. And that would be all of your answers for number 23. Now for number 24, I have 19 pi over 3, but my f function is cosecant squared and my g function is cotangent squared. So if I rewrite this, it's going to be cosecant squared of 19 pi over 3 minus, cotangent squared of 19 pi over 3. Now if I count 19, so this would be 1, 2, and 3, then 1, 2, and 3. Starting at 0, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Puts me back in quadrant 1, and that's going to be a 60-degree angle. So the adjacent would be 1, opposite would be root 3, hypotenuse would be 2. So cosecant is the inverse of sine. So that would be hypotenuse over adjacent. No, inverse of sine is hypotenuse over opposite. So that would be 2 over root 3, and I would have to square that. Minus the cotangent, which would be adjacent over opposite. So 1 over root 3, and I'd have to square that as well. That is going to end up giving me 4 over 3 minus 1 over 3. And my result would just be equal to 1 on number 24. Now moving on to number 25 is going to be our long problem, because we have 5 steps that we have, or 4 steps that we have to do with this problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by solving for y on this line. So if I move the y to the other side, I would end up getting y is equal to x plus 2. My point is going to be 1 comma negative 4. Step number 1 is to find the equation that's perpendicular to this one. So I'm going to flip the slope, making it negative, and I have to solve for the plus b by using this point. So that would be negative 4 equals negative 1 plus b, giving me that b is equal to negative 3, and therefore y equals negative x minus 3. Now step 2 is to find where this line, the perpendicular line, and this line intersect. So I'm going to set them equal to each other, meaning that x plus 2 is going to be equal to negative x minus 3. If I add the x to this side, I get 2x. If I move the 3 to the other side, or the 2 to the other side, I get negative 5. Therefore, x is going to be equal to negative 5 over 2. Now for step 3, I have to plug this in to solve for y, and you can plug it either into this line or that one. It doesn't matter. I'm going to plug it into the first one. So y is equal to negative 5 over 2 plus 2, making a common denominator, would make y equal to negative 1/2. Now that's step 3, but step 4 is to find the distance between the original point and my intersected point. So I'm going to do y1 minus y2, so it would be plus 5 over 2 squared, plus y1 minus y2, which would turn into plus 1/2 squared. So both of these are negative, so they turn into a positive. So that would become square root of 2 plus 5 would be 7 over 2 squared. Negative 8 plus 1 would be negative 7 over 2 squared. So that would be 49 plus 49 over 4. So 49 plus 49 gives us 98. And that would simplify to 7 square root 2 all over 2. And that would be number 25 on this lesson. Now number 26 is tricky because they're actually having you do one of your circle problems within number 26. So it's actually having you do 2 things in one, which is not very nice of them. So the first one, I'm going to start by putting the x's together and the y's together and moving the 12 to the other side. Then I have to complete the square, so this would be x minus 3 squared. Add 9 to both sides. Half of 4 is 2, so y plus 2 squared. And then add 4 to both sides. Should be less than or equal to 1. So now the coordinate of the center of the circle is going to be 3 comma negative 2 because it's opposite of what's given to you. The radius is going to be the square root of that, which is 1. Because it says less than, you're going to shade everything with inside of the circle. Now I'm going to work on number 26 part B. I'm going to start by dividing everything by 2. So that would be x squared. And then it would be plus y squared plus 4y is less than or equal to 10. Now I don't complete the square with the x, it's just technically x minus 0 squared. And then y plus 2 squared, so I'd have to add 4 to both sides. Nope, this should be a 5 because I did not divide it by 2. So I add 4 to the 5, so that would be less than or equal to 9. So now the center of this circle is going to be 0, -2. And the radius is going to be equal to 3 because it's the square root of 9. Now this is less than also, so it'd be everything inside of this circle as well. Now I need to diagram this. So I'm going to go 3, -2, and then my radius is 1. So I'll just go up 1, to the left 1, to the right 1, and then down 1. And this would be my circle. Second one is going to be 0, down 1, 2. And the radius is 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to connect those dots. Now I said it's inside of both circles. So the only place that's going to be inside both circles would be this section right here. And that would be your answer. So the only portion that's shaded inside both circles would be this section right there. Now moving on to number 27, we are going to be solving for the missing part, which is x. Now notice that they share this angle down here in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this triangle so that it has, so for 27, I'm going to flip the triangle so that I have the shared angle here and the right angle here, which would give me x here. And then the height would be 2. Then when I flip the big triangle, the angle would be here, would be 3. The height would be 4 here. So what I need to do is I need to solve for the hypotenuse on this triangle first. And I'm going to do that by using Pythagorean theorem. So I'll use h squared equals 3 squared plus 4 squared. So h squared equals 9 plus 16. We know that's 25. So that means my hypotenuse is going to be equal to 5. Now that I know that, I'm going to solve for x using ratio. So I'm going to do 2 over 4 equals x over 5 and cross multiply it, giving me 4x is equal to 10. And therefore, x is going to be equal to 5 over 2. And that would be your answer for 27. Now moving on to 28, we're going to be looking at logarithms. So I see there's a number outside my logarithm. I also see a minus sign. So I'm going to combine on the left side first, which would give me for number 28, I would have log base 8 of x minus 1 over x minus 2 equals log 8 of 9, because 3 squared is 9. Now I'm going to get rid of the log 8 by raising it to the power of 8 and cross multiply. So I have x minus 1 equals 9x minus 18, because this is essentially 9 over 1. Now if I move the 9x to the left, I get negative 8x. Move the 1 to the right, I get negative 17. So that means x is going to be equal to 17 over 8. Now for number 29, there's 3 parts to this problem, which is just lovely for you guys. So if there's a number outside my logarithm, it's going to become the exponent. So for a, I'm going to have log 7 of 7 to the third plus 7 to the log 7 of 3 squared minus log 7 of 3. Now, I know that this log 7 and this 7 are going to cancel, so that's really just 3. Plus 7 to the log 7 of 3 squared is 9. Then I have to do divided by 3. Now I know that's the 7 and this log 7 also cancel. So really I'm left with 3 plus 3, which is equal to 6. Now for B, again, I need to move the number that's outside my logarithm to the exponent. So this would become log of 10 squared to the 4th minus, log 10 to the 2nd, and that would be plus ln e to the negative 2. Now the first one is going to turn into log 10 to the 8th because it's 2 times 4 minus log 10 to the 2nd plus ln e to the negative 2. Now, my log and my 10 actually cancel because a log with no base is assumed to be 10, so they actually cancel each other. And the ln and the e also cancel because ln is a log with a base of e. Therefore, I have 8 minus 2 plus negative 2. And that should be equal to 4. Now, lastly, I'm looking at this one right here. Again, I have a number outside my log or my natural log. So C, we're going to do ln e to the 2/3 times 2 minus log 10 to the 1/2, and then minus log 3 to the 1/12 to the power of 4. So I have to multiply the 2 and the 2/3, which would give me ln e to the 4/3 minus log 10 to the 1/2, and then minus log 3 to the 4/12, which would be 1/3. Now the ln and the e, the log and the 10, that log 3 and the 3 cancel. So really I have 4/3 minus 1/2 minus 1/3. So really that's going to be 4/3 minus 1/3 is actually just 3/3. So 1 minus 1/2 means that my answer is just 1/2. Now, lastly, we're going to look at number 30, which is going to be our long problem. I'm going to start by doing the first function, which is plugging x plus h in for x. So that means that that part would become 2 times x plus h squared minus 3 times x plus h plus 1. So this is just the first part. Now I'm going to subtract the f of x function, which is that entire function. So that would be 2x squared minus 3x plus 1. That's all going to be over h. Now what I'm going to do is I need to multiply that out. So for the first part, I'm going to have 2 times x squared plus 2xh plus h squared minus 3x minus 3h plus 1. I'm going to distribute the minus sign, so that would be minus 2x squared plus 3x minus 1 all over h. And lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute that 2. So that would become 2x squared plus 4xh plus 2h squared minus 3x minus 3h plus 1 minus 2x squared plus 3x minus 1 all over h. Now there should be some things that will cancel. If you notice, the 2x squareds will cancel because one's positive, one's negative. The 3x's will cancel because one's positive, one's negative. The 1's are going to cancel because one's positive, one's negative. And then we can divide each of these terms by h. So this h would go away. This h would be lowered by 1 power. This h would go away. I would be left with 2h plus 4x minus 3. So really, I had to do like 3 different parts to it. This color was done with the original problem, so the minus and the over h. Now the purple was done with the f of x plus h, where you plug this x plus h in for x. And then the brown was just our normal f of x function, so the original that they gave us. But that all simplifies down to this. And this should finish all of your questions from lesson 77. I hope you guys all have a great day. Bye.